So Vail is here for her first drop-off session. What we're going to be doing today is just introducing her to some basics. I'm going to be using these two cones to predict a pattern, and we're going to walk the pattern over and over again. Now Vail has been selective about her feeding. Sometimes she'll take a treat, sometimes she won't. It depends on her stress level. Granted, this is her first lesson without her owners, so she's a little bit distressed that she's on her own. What we're going to do is we're going to do loose leash walking, and every now and then we're going to introduce a sit. We're going to ask her to sit verbally as well as with a physical command by raising our hand. If Vail doesn't sit, what we're going to do is apply a tiny amount of pressure. I don't mean hanging your dog, I don't mean correcting them, but a little bit of tension on the leash so that she learns tension on the leash is wrong answer or undesired behavior, whereas the second she sits down, we're going to say yes to mark the command, and we're going to release the leash to let her know that she's made the right choice. We use this with positive reinforcement, with food in order to encourage behavior. However, if a dog isn't very responsive, then we use primarily negative reinforcement to help them communicate our goals. So, we're going to use let's go for when we start moving forward, and this way to let her know when we're going to do a direction change. Ready, Vail? Let's go. Good girl. This way. Good girl. Good girl, Vail. This way. Good girl. Ah. Now the same thing goes for loose leash walking. If there's tension on the leash, yes. I'm going to say ah to let her know that that's undesired behavior. But if there's a loose leash and she comes back to me, then I'm going to mark with yes and praise her for the right behavior. But ah. This way. Yes, good girl. Yes, good girl. It's nice and loose. I say yes and praise her. Good girl. This way. However, when it's tense, I say ah and wait for the dog to return to me before I move forward and mark her. So she pulls forward, ah. She comes back, loose leash. Yes, good girl. Let's go. Good girl. Good girl, Vail. Ah. Yes, good girl. Ah. Ah. This way. Yes, good girl. We're going to try a sit now. I'm going to go Vail, sit, ask her once, put a little bit of pressure on the leash. Vail, sit. Yes, release the leash the second she does the behavior to let her know that's correct. Ready? Let's go. Good girl. There you go. Good girl. Let's go. Good girl. This way. This way. Good girl. This way. Now once she gets more comfortable, I'm going to start doing figure eights. But if she pulls and stops on the leash, I'm going to have to wait for her to release tension. Yes. And walk next to me on a loose leash before I can praise her or mark the behavior. This way. Yes, good girl. Let's go. Good girl. Good girl. The is not necessarily a no marker. It's not a punishment. It just lets her know, oh, look, that thing that you're doing right now, like crossing behind me and putting tension on the leash, that's unwanted behavior. It's a contrast to the yes marker. Vail, let's go. Let's go. Yes, good girl. Let's go. Let's go. Yes, good girl. Now I'm not correcting the dog or jerking the dog or punishing the dog. I'm using negative reinforcement to let her know you can remove the pressure on your neck, which is just a communication, an indicator, by walking next to me. Let's go. Yes. The choice is up to her. This way. Yes, good girl. Good girl. Good girl, Vail. This way. Good girl. Here you go. Vail, sit. Sit. Yes, good girl. Well done. Good girl. There you go. Now, before she was a bit hesitant and would move away from me when I tried to pet her, but now that we're getting into a habit of routine, she's comfortable with me doing it. She's not totally thrilled, but she's very tolerant of it and is actually not showing severe avoidance behavior or walks away. Good girl, Vail. Yes, good girl. This way. Yes, good girl. Let's go. Good girl. Now, I make sure to give her a very long leash so that she can be successful as walking on the leash. If I hold the leash here and I walk her, she's going to be constantly pulling, meaning she's going to be failing. So if I drop the leash and let her know this is correct, this is good, slack leash is good, she's going to be a lot more successful if there's a longer tether. As she becomes better at loose leash walking, then I can shorten it slightly. Let's go. Good girl. Let's go. Good. Good girl. This way. This way, Vail. Good girl. Vail. Sit. Sit. Yes, good girl. And like I said, I'm going to use my marker and release that little bit of tension the second she sits down to let her know that's correct. Good girl. Yes, good girl. And since she's been doing well, I'm going to drop the leash, say okay, free, and release her from the work that we've been doing just now. Okay, free. Free. Here you go, walk run. Come on. Free. Yeah, come on. Free. Come on. Free. Get up. Here. Find it. Good girl. There you